For our 20th talk, we have Janiva Ellis here with us.
Hi. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming. There's so many people that I admire here, and yeah, strangers who came because they care. So thank you so much.
All right. Sometimes, when a person contorts themselves for so long, their reality itself becomes a distortion. If a person forgets their contortion, then the distortion is a reality. More often than not, though, somewhere deep down, the score is being kept, and that's what keeps it a distortion. The figures in Janiva Ellis's paintings are living in this wonky place where contortion and distortion meet, where internal and social realities commingle and conflict. I think maybe that's why she favors cartoons, because they can stretch like an accordion, get blown up by landmines, and freeze or burn without ever skipping a beat. They're projections of contortion and distortion. The cartoon, despite its flatness, here acts as an echo chamber for history's emotional and violent contradictions. Meanwhile, a richly detailed illusionistic landscape may, in fact, be entirely flat, a visual lie that we've accepted as reality. In the interplay, Ellis is able to conjure vivid but slippery tableaus that weigh as much on the socio-political as they do the privacy of one's most intimate thoughts. She is a skillful conductor. The haze is intentional, the confusion is part of the pleasure, and the finish is meant to be a question. She's an artist who knows how to simultaneously set a trap and set you free. Please join me in welcoming Janiva Ellis.
You tore that. You ate that the fuck up. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for seeing the work. Thank you for confidently putting words to it and engaging with it and not shying away from your assumptions about the work, because they're really right on and like cathartic to hear.
Thank you. I'm honored. It's not easy to write about your work. It's not easy to talk about your work because like there are some things that come up where you're just like, I don't know how to put that together, and I don't know the dynamic of how I'm supposed to like play it all out sometimes, because it's like it's charged. And I think in this conversation it'll be really nice to talk about how those dynamics stay charged and how they move and change throughout the work, because there's been a lot of changes, and it's like that's the reason why I want to start with such an early piece, because we're going to start here and then we're going to go all over. And the development is amazing. Like, I don't say this that often and I'm not blowing steam. It's like, it's rare to see an artist where every show it gets better and better and better. It's like, I'm genuinely astonished, because like when I saw your first show and I was like, yeah, this is great, but like I'm curious what comes next. I remember Tyler the Creator talking about like Vince Staples' album. Like it came out and he was like, yeah, this is it, but, and he's like, the next album was the one he was excited about.
Right, totally. Well, I feel like oftentimes in the studio, it's like I've processed the idea, but I still have to make the show. I'm halfway through the painting and I got the idea and I'm like, oh, but I have to finish the painting and I have to finish the show, but I cannot wait to take what I've metabolized and bring it to the next project. I'm on the hook for this project and I do need to finish this and get it out, but there's already so much enthusiasm for what I want to say next, and then in the next project it's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I'm in there and then I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. But I feel like while I'm making, I know what future me needs to do until future me is present me, and then I'm confused again.
And you can stay in it? Like you can stay, like how do you keep that same energy?
I don't, I don't keep that same energy, but I do, it's a drive, I think it's an underlying drive. And I think sometimes I try and let the energy of the past project evacuate by taking a lot of space or, creating interventions in the work that are challenges, so that the part of my mind that's stimulated by problem solving is activated again.
Yeah.
and I try and take what I've learned and remember, I'll keep notes and whatever and be like, okay, I don't even know what that note meant, but let me interpret it in the now and run with that thread. So
Right.
it's not necessarily about holding tight onto the thoughts that happened in the past, but maintaining a same like enthusiasm around my curiosities and my desire to feel challenged but by what I can create.
Yeah. This painting is called The Okiest Doke from 2017.
The okiest doke. The okie doke. Who said it? One of my friends said, don't get caught up in the okie doke. And it's either Daisy Escobar, Juliana Huxtable, or Christina Edumezu. And it could have just been the community. Latosha. I don't know. It could have just been something we all said.
Uh-huh.
But don't get caught up in the okie doke was like very much a 2014, like, we're out here vibe. And I feel like, as with a lot of my titles, they come from notes I had taken about things I had said or friends of mine had said on nights out about the predicament we'd find ourselves in and the joy we'd find in feeling like we were able to put language to the spiral we were navigating.
It always feels that way. The titles are really, they catch a vibe. Like, I understand it sometimes. And then other times, like, it kind of washes over you, and then you click with the image, you click with the vibe of the image too. And then you can sort of feel that vertigo of like where the picture takes you to. Like, part of why I wanted to start here is also this cartoon this like communion into cartoons, I think, is an interesting place to start, and also how you continue to use the cartoon as it continues on in the work. Like, in my understanding, the history of cartoons is a pretty fraught one, especially like as we get into Looney Tunes and all that. It's the precursors of those cartoons is essentially like minstrelsy, and seeing blackface and minstrelsy turn into the cartoons that become beloved characters and then become these characters that never die, can always be distorted, can always work harder, can always just explode, freeze, do whatever, and just come to life again. That feels, for that to be the person who's giving the wafer here,
right,
feels wild.
The cartoon's burden. It's like the burden of constantly having to endlessly embody like a projection. Basically, when I started doing cartoons, it was literally out of the need for speed. Like, I was taking my practice really seriously for the first time, and I felt a lot of shyness around pursuing what it is I wanted to pursue. I really wanted like a level of grandiosity that I didn't know how to achieve, and I also had a lot of self-doubt. So I kind of decided, let's just go back to basics. You can communicate the things you want to very quickly and easily by cartooning, and you can re-access your hand and your ability to draw by using cartoons. And I think the fact that it speaks to the fraughtness of the way that white violence depicts blackness and the way that whiteness cartoonifies black people was not the starting point. Like, that was just there's just so many moments where I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, oh, the funny byproduct of that is that there's a critique to be had about whiteness. It's
Right.
not the point often. It often is just like, well, it's there and it's in everything. And I'm going to choose this. Like, there's a painting I did of a woman, and I made her into Pinhead. And then I did some research on Clive Barker, who made Hellraiser. Like, where did Pinhead come from? And it came from African sculpture. And I was like, wasn't trying to give that, but obviously it gave that, And as I was painting, I was like, that worked out, that worked out that way. But there's white violence and just woven through so much pop culture, and so much of what I'm referencing, things I'm referencing from an organic place, from a place of resonance, that it doesn't take too much to connect those dots. And I can kind of just riff without trying to make a heady dialogue around blackface. It's already there. Like,
Yeah.
the history is there. And I think people people ask me about, like early on, people were asking me a lot about blackface, Sambo, these things. And I'm like, yeah, that's inherently in there. But I'm not trying to flatten that dialogue. I'm trying to
Right.
create broader worlds for that representation to exist.
Did you always trust your intuition?
No, absolutely not. No. I still now I'm like, a watershed wine, and I was like, it's like a constant, like, I don't, it's like moment to moment. I do feel really driven, and I feel like I'm strong. So there's that. I'm like, I know that I'm strong, but I do also have doubt, and there's an underlying pulse that I trust. But topically, I feel really disillusioned and really capable of, falling for dumb tricks. So I as I get older, I feel more capable, more self-trusting. And as the people in my life become reflections of who I want to be surrounded by, the relationships I want to see in the world, that really bolsters my sense of self-worth, and that then bolsters my trust in myself. But no, I didn't feel that way. Even when I started painting again after kind of years of taking a break, I was like,
what's the story
fuck
there?
it.
Like, how did you come to painting? Why did you go away from it, and what got you back?
So I started painting as a kid and was always painting. And my mom was very encouraging of me being just good at something, like finding what I liked and just like doing that, and like finding catharsis in some way. She's really supportive of that. So I did that for a long time and went to schools that encouraged creativity. Went to college. College kind of evaporated all of the excitement and enthusiasm I had about the potential to make something meaningful.
Did you go to like a art school, or was it just?
I went to an art school. Yeah,
Okay.
I went to California College of the Arts in San Francisco. And the experience I had alongside school was so deeply enriching in terms of self-identifying and finding people that inspired me. But the school experience was pretty stale. I remember the idea that, only 5% of you are going to be doing this for the rest of your life. And only...
They told you that?
Oh, yeah. It was very
wow.
like, y'all are going to be failures. So, compete for who can actually make this a thing.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. Is that normal? Did people experience this in art school? That's kind of a thing, right? Like this idea that only exceptionalism will bring you fulfillment, essentially. And that was just the vibe. And then what I saw being labeled as exceptional, I was like,
That's
what
not
is, what's tea? This is crazy. Like, this is bad. This is a bad art. Like, what's going on? So then I was just kind of like, what? But I also knew, like, just based on the kinds of things I attracted in my life, that like I was able to actualize, and I was capable of like finding a heartbeat, like in what I wanted out of life. So I did have that feeling, but I didn't know how to get it, and I didn't have models of what that really looked like.
But you knew you wanted to be an artist then, or was that still in formation?
I did deep down,
Yeah.
but I was open to a lot of options of what that could look like, and open to a lot of options of how art would enter my life, through teaching or through programs or things like that. Like, I wasn't like, I'm going to be a successful artist. That definitely was not something I thought was a given or something I was striving for, like, outright. It didn't feel inherently valuable to what I had to offer the world.
Right.
So, but it was there. And of course, I wanted to ultimately live a life where I was creating things that connected with people, and that I would have the respect of my peers and the respect of people who engage with what I did. So that could have looked a couple different ways.
So that first show at the gallery and entering the art world and all of that, what was that step? This is a painting from that show. So I just want to like give some context to.
Right. This was the first show. That moment was really like a madness. I had gone to school. I had gone to New York. I had connected with people who I really felt were my people. I had crashed out. I went back home to Hawaii, tried to figure it out again, spiraled deeply, decided to go back to the mainland, I grew up in Hawaii, so that's the context of that. I moved back because that's where my mom lives, and that's where I grew up. That's like the context that shaped so much of my perspective in terms of growing up on an island and growing up very isolated as a Black person, and growing up with like an immense wonder of the world and also doubt of my environment. So that was a whole thing. And when I moved to New York, I finally was like, wait, what? Black community? That's crazy. Like, actually, that's crazy. And it was just such a rich moment. And the intersection of being like, okay, I went to San Francisco, the queer community hit. I'm in New York. It's Black, it's queer, it's cute. So leaving felt really like I'm abandoning work that I've put into finding my people. Mm-hmm. But Hawaii had its own healing intersection. I knew I couldn't stay there forever, but it was a good detour. So then I moved to LA. When I got to LA, my friend Jesse let me stay with him, and also was just very like, you got to do this. Like, come on, like, you should paint. And had helped me like get canvases and helped me get things that I needed. And I was kind of like, whatever. I was like up in the air. I didn't have like a solid job. I briefly worked on a cruise, and I had made money bartending on this cruise. So I had like a chunk of money from that. And that's when I was able to like focus on painting, because I had that little savings and these materials. And I started to make paintings, and like very quickly, I think the enthusiasm of being somebody who had lived in New York, but also the novelty of being from Hawaii, like really helps in people thinking you're cool. Like people are like, we want to know more, you know?
Yeah.
So that's an advantage. And I think when I got to LA, people are like, what's your deal? Or like, I've seen you around, or, you know, I had spent some time partying in LA like years prior. So there was just some foundation there. And so
this is a totally random question, but having worked on a cruise, would you ever go on one?
No, I never wanted to go on one in the first place. I think like it wasn't, and the cruise I worked on was like a small adventure cruise. So it was an Alaskan cruise. It was a 60 passenger boat. So it was pretty intimate. And it was for your kind of like middle-aged to elderly, adventurous white, Northwestern person.
Oh, so this is straight like classes for you. Like this is classes of anthropology of whiteness.
It's anthropology. It's all anthropology. Yeah. It's all like, okay, that's how we're freaking it over here. Cool. That's different, you know? It's data.
Yeah.
So there was data on the cruise, for sure. It was actually really crazy. That was a crazy experience. No, it's cool because it segues into Sebastian feeling hot. The reason why I decided to put Sebastian in this painting is because it was the first Jamaican character I knew of. And I was really like, okay, cute. Like, let's get a Jamaican, the Jamaican person. Of course, it's still giving like, I love you. Like, please, I'm here, Prince Charming or whatever. Prince Charming is based on, what's his name? Tom Cruise. And then that's my friend Adie as a child. And when the music we were listening to coming in is an album she put out with her friend Naila Hunter.
Okay.
The two of them made this album for meditation called Iyun on Spotify. But that's her as a child. And I didn't really know her at the time, but I saw the picture and I was like, this little girl who knows what the fuck's up needs to be. She's just trying to go to the pool. Sebastian's in the spiral. And then we have this kind of very spooky guy, like, who's there for some reason, you know?
Did you see Sinners?
I saw Sinners. I loved Sinners.
Sinners is great.
It's so good.
It's so good. We're going again on Thursday.
Good. I want the second time hits.
Oh, you've already seen it twice?
Yes. We did that! We saw it twice. Yeah, it was good. Are you going to see it in IMAX?
Yeah, that's why we're going a second time.
That's what it gave. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we were doing.
Okay, because this is what's coming through for me. There's something vampiric here. There's something undead here, and like
right, and they're like in the warehouse, like having a good time, and this guy's just like, I saw you there spiraling, and I'm ready to go. And it's like, this was not about you. Wow, I live for that. That's cool. The background scene is from The Wiz when they're brand new day.
Oh shit.
Brand new daying it. And I put him on top of there because I was like, I feel like with all the incredible Black media that I've been exposed to, for some reason, there's just like some white guy constantly in the center, like taking
his head is so big.
And it is. Like, I just was kind of like, I think this early work, I was like, can we talk about this stuff? Like, I feel like I want to talk about these things. I didn't realize how maybe cryptic the work was being read. It felt so literal to me, in terms of just like the tension of trying to thrive under white supremacy and microaggressions and all that.
Who thought it was cryptic? I think that's a good, like...
I mean, obviously non-Black people and specifically white people, but the reflections I was having as I entered the art world back to me were primarily through writing by people who weren't Black or curating by people who weren't Black. And I think, although I took that context into mind, like it was louder. It just was louder than what the conversations I was having with peers about the work.
Because I hadn't, like, as soon as I saw this, the energy it was giving was whiteness is on display and it's gross. Like this particular variety of like, there's a toxicity.
The violence of
there's an enormous violence of it that's happening on so many different registers too.
Right.
Because there's overt things, but then there's the ways in which it shifts people of color's visions of themselves. The internalized visions that like people have of themselves is shifted by whiteness.
Yeah, the parasite of how you self-ideate through whiteness.
Yeah, that's so that is such it's such a more insidious space, and it's very difficult to represent. I haven't seen painters represent that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even actually think of anyone.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Like, I hope it'll spawn other artists to think with it, but like you're the first artist that I've seen that does that. You don't need to think of examples of other people.
Yeah, I'm like, I think
it's you.
I just saw the Jack Whitten show, and I feel like it was such a relieving experience to see the course of the work. And I feel like a lot of the artists who are processing this information are doing it just like abstractly and are doing it happens a lot more through music and through cinema and through abstraction, and because safety is a part of that. And I think in terms of illustrating those sensations, it's like not as common of a thing. It doesn't feel that safe to do that, and it didn't. I think I just stopped caring. I stopped giving a fuck, and being in LA felt like a frontier to not care. And I like had a really cute bedroom, and like that really helped. Like that helped me be like, I'm just gonna do this. Like I like what my room looks like, and I'm around my friends, and I feel like inspired because I've like left Hawaii. I like came back to people who recognize me, and I have nothing to lose. But yeah, I was like, this is edgy, but is it that edgy? It's not that crazy to be like, this painting, Doubt Guardian 2, no matter how much kind of you commune and how much care you try and give, like there's always like an internal spiral, and there's always an impulse to make sure you're protecting whiteness even within the insulation of community. Or maybe not. That's a generalization, but that is something that exists.
It's an anxiety.
It's an anxiety.
Yeah.
So I did want to articulate those things.
The thing that I think it expands and you keep pushing it, is this sort of emotional palimpsest.
What does that
where
mean? What does palimpsest?
palimpsest is like when a page gets put, like, it'll be like a page and then another page will just be put on top of it and it'll be sort of embedded into it. So it's like, in this case, it's like a face on top of a face
Oh, I
on top
see.
of a face. And
Okay.
like things just keep getting layered and pushed in. So like you'll see ancient texts where it's like it's this either Egyptian text or whatever it might be, and there'll be like a new text embedded into it that's just how history went. In this case, not so literally, there's like an emotional world that happens when all of these things get projected and pushed into one being, and how that it doesn't even, what's beautiful about it is that it doesn't even feel like fracture. Like that almost feels easier. This is like the blurriness of having them all commingled at the same time.
Yeah. It's like a lot of things happening at once, like reconciling how you're being perceived, how you perceive yourself, and how you want to be perceived. And like even just the distance between how you are being perceived and how you want to be perceived is like a lot, you know, to just like conceptualize. And then how you perceive yourself is like lifelong work. And like,
Right.
it's just, you know, there's like the immediate, there's the potential, there's like the near future, there's like the distant future, there's the past. It's just like it's a lot of time, not nonlinear time happening when, especially when you're engaging violence, you know, especially microaggression. Like
Right.
microaggression like relies on it's an unnameability, and I think those things are really hard to name when you don't know yourself, and you don't have the tools to like articulate who you know yourself to be.
This is the thing that strikes me as like even further more of a singularity about you, is that there are artists that know how to there are artists that make great work, that their intuition takes them to a place and they do amazing things. They don't necessarily know everything that they're doing, and that they don't have to. That's not what's required of them. What I find kind of particularly astonishing about the way that you move is, especially from conversations we've had in the past, is like how you're able to articulate those ambiguities both in the work and then also in conversation. Like, I'm wondering, this is just me going out on a limb, like growing up in Hawaii and being sort of away from dominant conversations about race, do you think it gave you a way to see things that other people couldn't see because they're too in it?
I think it gave me perspective because dominant conversations about Blackness specifically weren't happening, but there were conversations about race and interrogations of colonialism and whiteness in Hawaii when I was growing up. Lots changed, and it's quite different. The colonial project moves quickly, and that's very apparent in what Hawaii is giving now. But when I was growing up, it was still very appropriate to have like verbal disdain for white people who had moved to Hawaii. Like, you need to acclimate to this vibe. What is that energy? This is what we give here. And there's still this kind of racial ambiguity, privilege, and obviously white privilege. But in casual conversation, it would just be like, "Ugh, that white guy is doing this thing," and you know, it's just like, and it just was more dominant because whiteness wasn't the predominant race, and because when we're learning about history, we're learning about the recent colonial project. So I think that helped to just be like suspicious, like culturally suspicious at large. But then I think in relationship to my removal from how race functions on the mainland or the continental United States, I say mainland affectionately, but it actually like is like a word we're trying not to say because it privileges the continental United States. But I feel like it gave me a perspective on certain things about how whiteness functioned differently there, or here, and than it does in Hawaii.
Can you tell me where that particular, like, is that cartoon invented? The
So
red-haired
things are
girl?
rarely invented in terms of their structure. Like a lot of the figures in the work are armatures from different movies, cartoons, landscapes, art. Like I rarely really make a character wholly from scratch. Like
Okay.
there are inventions in my and how I navigate ultimately how to get to a finished product, given, my shortcomings and my strengths. But which character are you talking about?
The red-haired,
The white character
yeah,
is
the
from
white character.
the white character is from a Ralph Bakshi movie.
Okay.
I think it's from Heavy Traffic. Ralph Bakshi made these movies in the 70s about that were like pointing at racial tropes that, but also like felt very. When I first saw them, I was like, oh, a black person made this. And then when I found out a white person made it, I felt betrayed, which is so many things. It's such a thing. You're just like, oh, well, now I have to reframe this because I enjoyed it. But yeah, he made this movie about New York, about like racialized dynamics. He's kind of the main character. There's this black girl who works at a bar that he likes, and they have a vibe. And there's this like trans femme character in the thing that's based on her. That's her. So she I didn't want to literally be like, this is narratively about that, but that image of her flying, she gets knocked upside the head, and she's incredibly vulnerable in that moment. And I guess the image itself was really striking because I'm like, this is injustice represented through this cartoon. But also there's something about how, just the interplay around how fragility, just white, like precarity, the distance between like white precarity, white fragility, and blackness, like creating a net.
Mm-hmm.
And
these are conversations that continue in the work. I mean, I'm gonna shoot ahead now because that made me think of this painting.
Right. Really different.
Really different.
Yeah, this painting I was like really distrustful of the exhibition landscape in art. So much of that earlier cartooning work, when being pretty explicit about Black figures experiencing like subjugation, or the kind of illustration of like just some turmoils or frustrations or the complexities. I really made that work in earnest in my studio, thinking about connecting with other Black people through that work. And as I got deeper into the art world, I realized that that impulse was being manipulated by the agenda of like the art market at any given moment. So I was feeling pretty disillusioned and frustrated and angsty about not being able to like freely access the things I was doing. Like early work just happened so quickly and so fluidly, and I'm like, I'm going to project that, and I'm going to watch that movie, and that ties to that, and these narratives feel so interconnected. I feel like I can see it so clearly. And as I experienced more writing about my work, more conversations with respectable art people, it got cloudier and cloudier, and my studio was full of people who I didn't like mentally, and I was just like, how do I keep doing this and enjoy it? Mm-hmm. How do I take control of what's going on?
So there's, on the one hand, there's like who you let into the studio and who you let into your
like it's
life.
full of studio, like my studio is full of people, like psychologically I'm like
got it,
spiraling. Like people aren't actually in there physically.
Okay.
Sometimes yes,
sure,
but like primarily it's like I'm painting with chatter that didn't exist before.
Chad's
like
chatter.
Chad?
Chad just seems like the whitest name to me, so.
No, there's Chad. Yeah, Chad's in there. Yeah. But like it's like Charles. Like it's like Chad, you see Chad coming,
It's maybe Alex.
It's
maybe
like, yeah.
Brad.
Devin. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, whoa, I thought we were both out here with the piercings.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it like, I think my radar for discernment recalibrated in that period, and specifically with this Rats show at the ICA, because I had a very tense experience making the show with the institution, that this, I just wanted to be like, I'm just going to talk about whiteness, like primarily. I'm not going to, I almost wanted to be like, I'm not doing black figures, but I was like, that still feels oppressive to not, like.
Yeah, that's just the opposite side of
I'm
the
just
coin.
inverting things, and I do want to make like these cool images. I do
Right.
want to make these like exciting compositions, and I still want to represent the things I want to represent.
Mhm.
But I had, more of an impulse to like contrast that with images like this, I guess.
The reason I bring this up also is that, so this was based off of Walker Evans' photograph, where white precarity, white victimhood are sort of established in this long photographic project where Walker Evans and James Agee go through into the sharecropping South, and they document white sharecroppers specifically. I know those images and I know that book, but the twist here, I think, is like you creating a place in which the hidden violence of starting that conversation is like brought to the fore, where there's like a very neutral landscape where you can, even if you don't know Walker Evans, even if you don't know all of that backstory, just as an image, what you see is a landscape with a grave. You don't know who the grave is for, but you do see something roiling in the back that
Roiling, I like that.
fucks up what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So something is central, but you feel like the thing that is supposed to be central isn't.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like the sensationalism of a representation of death is like complicated by an ominous abstraction.
Yeah. That's not easy. Like, that's because it can easily fall into illustration. It can fall into like, you're not paying attention to the right thing. You have to and
Right.
it can become this preachy discourse. But instead, there are two things for me that felt like a big jump in your work, which is one, the color palette gets like dank,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes to a place that feels like something was scooped out. Like it just feels
It's like murkier, and like, there are voids created by the lack of vivid color that I was like very much like pushing really hard. And I think in the midst of also being like the figuration, all of this feels like an advertisement for engagement, and I don't want my work to kind of reduce itself to style and to kind of like repetition and to like pushing buttons I know work. Like, and I think color was one of those things that people always kind of was an out. Like when people would write about the work, they would lean into the cartoon and the color as a way of not talking about the racial dynamics. And I was just like, y'all, what? That's key. They're like, cartoons, like, you like cartoons? It's like, who fucking doesn't? Like, that's not the point. And I think the color also felt, especially in that moment where black figuration was becoming so lucrative in the marketplace, like I just was like, this is feeling disgusting, and I don't want to advertise the value of my work through people's like low vibrational impulses. Like I don't want like them to be like, I like colors and black figures. Like I was just like, I'm scared. You're scaring me. You're stressing me the fuck out. Actually, let's flip it around. This is about y'all and y'all's history, and like the self-ideation with like vulnerability and entitlement to like ascending to your highest version of yourself no matter what, because in the 1930s everyone was poor. Like that's really feels like a big part of white American identity. Everyone was poor in the 30s, like as a fallout of slavery and like the war and all of these things, and that's like an entitlement to like be like demonic. And so I was just like, let's just paint that out. This image feels like a representation of like, that painting is called Bloodlust Halo. And
This one.
no, not this one.
The other
that
one. Yeah,
Bloodlust
right.
Halo, because I was just thinking about, and that's also kind of sinner's energy. Like,
Oh yeah.
it is just like a justification for a death drive because of like an abstraction of precarity, as represented by Walker Evans and what's her name,
Dorothea Lange.
Lang. Yeah, like these images of like, wow, look at these poor white people.
There's so much dirt on their faces.
Great. There's so much dirt, and it's like, okay. I don't know. I just wanted to be like, okay, let's center that, you know? And I think also in the moment I had that show in 2020, like it was like the highlight of Black Death was just such a topical like hashtag.
Right.
And so I'm like, let's talk about like death as a concept, and what white death represents versus, you know, just like try and stretch that a little bit instead of kind of illustrating Black precarity for thirsty, rich white people.
Were there studio visits where those people would be in the studio?
Not during the time, thank God, because of COVID, but also I had a full mental break, and was like, I don't fuck with any of you. I don't fuck with this. I was feeling very appeasing coming in. I had a lot of room, even though the work gave anger. The presentation gave, appeasing and like in service a little bit. Like
there are paintings from this period that feel like they're tapping into a space that feels unclear between like joy and hysteria, and also masochism. And I see those things like not being like fully removed in the work that's more recent, but like they shift and they develop in different ways. But like I kind of want to see like what that brings up for you. Like I kept thinking about like like when you smile so hard that it hurts, and that there's an internal kind of masochism happening there. And then there's also like this something that feels like exuberant. There's so much of that, of like this first period that feels exuberant, and like a challenging form of exuberance, because it's not like clean or simple or easy. It's difficult to figure out how a viewer is supposed to feel about that exuberance, and that it's tied up with like all these kind of knotty issues, like all this psychology that's like that can't resolve itself.
Yeah. I mean, the exuberance was so sincere because I was feeling so much catharsis from just painting. And like, I was experiencing a recognition from my peers about the depth I had. And I think I wasn't even being forthright about the depths of my thoughts, you know, in certain relationships. Even though I knew people knew they were there, they kind of took them for granted, you know? And I think I just was like, I have this other world in which these ideas can live. I think taking for granted is like an extreme, but I think I wasn't being reflected back like right? Like, that's a cool thought, you know? It's kind of just like, oh yeah, go off, you know? So I feel like I was really excited. That's where so much of that excitement is coming from. I was just like, oh my God, that's so funny. I was like making myself laugh. I was like having a blast with myself in a really sincere way. And I think later works, it's funny because there's like a different type of fraughtness in these paintings than there are in the later paintings. The later paintings are existential in a different way.
Very much.
But like a painting like this happened so quickly. I was like, oh, like I constantly think of this painting as like, how do I make a painting that fast again? Like that feels really like exciting and like a breakthrough of sorts with like the potential of paint, like, and what I'm doing now, I think, is like a little more technically muscular, but
Yeah.
like I don't think it's better. Like I think it's focused on a different skill set and
Yeah.
a different set of values and like a different type of depth and a different. It's different. Like this felt like wow, it's immediate. Like I don't even have to think about it that deeply. It just came out. So
I mean, it's an amazing painting.
thank you. I appreciate that. I really like felt real cool. I was like, I was like, what?
But now let's go back.
Okay.
So let's start diving into these darker. Actually, this project
Oh yeah.
feels like where you fully embrace this next chapter
Yeah.
and like embrace what it means to think about history painting in a new way. It makes me think of like even Renaissance painters like Titian, where they're dealing with the architecture. They're thinking about what the architecture means and how that functions in the work itself. And this is like in the round. I mean, this is a crazy painting. I wish we could like see every single part of it.
It's a hard picture to capture. For context, it's 30 feet in a curve, so it's meant to kind of simulate like an immersive panoramic type of experience. I mean, for context, I made this painting in Berlin, so there's that, which like I think did contribute to the decayed quality. I worked with this curator at the Hammer Arum who was saying, you know, it'd be cool for you to do a site-specific panoramic type of painting, and I was like, okay, I could do it. We've got 4 months, but I can do it. And
4 months?
it was really like quick turnaround. Like,
holy shit.
yeah, and I was like, fuck it, you know, like I want to do it. And this room had been built by the Armand Hammer, whoever the Hammer Museum, Armand Hammer.
Isn't that the actor?
No, that's Army Hammer.
Okay.
Darkness. It's darkness. It's all darkness.
That's my bad.
Tomato, bleak, dark, scary people. But I think this room was built for like a Da Vinci, to house some great Da Vinci work or something like this, some like special historical context. And so I was thinking about that specifically. And I don't know, the darkness came from, there's a painting I did recently that's in the, or not recently, I did it over 5 years, but it's in the show at the Carpenter Center, and it was also in my solo show in September.
Okay.
And that painting, I learned a lot of techniques about creating value on dark, muted tones, like really going dark to create like depth by using sheen and subtle variations in muted tone and like umbers and, you know, blues and things.
As we pan, you start seeing value differences too. You start seeing the coolness, even though they're like, it's like warm cool. Then we go into warm.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these distinctions between warm and cool with like the exterior and the interior. And this like angel that is, I'm not even sure what the relationship is between the angel and the other figure. And then almost like an angel sort of stifled in a blanket of sorts. It's like, it's very almost like that angel is wrestling with themselves. Maybe.
Yeah, that one's going through that. The contorted, they're all going through it. None
Yeah,
of them are
they're
in
all
a good.
going
None of
through
them
it.
are in a good place. For different reasons. This painting was interesting just because I made it that there was no natural light in the room it was exhibited in, but in the studio I had, it was like this big sunny room. The way that it changed with the spotlight versus how I was painting it in the sunlight was such a wild kind of set of circumstances. There was just a lot of journey happening in like that. But yeah, like a lot of these figures are taken from different artists. Like this contorted figure is taken from Kath Kollwitz, who's a German painter or printmaker, an illustrator who I really loved before going to Berlin, and then like happened upon a museum dedicated to her and got to see a lot of her prints like IRL. But this is based on a print she did of a figure that had been attacked in a field. So I was like, let's do a German context, scoop it in, but also just so deeply affected by her work and her approach, like her ability to capture that, the pathos of just like the violence she's like depicting, and it's just like so masterful and like stunning. And I didn't really learn about it until like 2020, didn't really see the work, so I was just like so deeply impacted by it. So I wanted to just like shout out, put it in.
I love that. Kata Kolvitz is like, you should really see the work. It is incredible.
The technique and the poetry of how she's depicting figures is just really special. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I was in a place where I was like, how do I access this like German thing? Like, I really do like to like paint for the terrain that I'm in, and I brought it to LA to show, but like I did want it to feel reflective of like what looms over Germany, what looms over people who go there to feel freedom.
It feels, it definitely has a Europeanness to it. And have you seen the movie White Ribbon?
No.
It's directed by Michael Haneke, and it's like right before, it's this weird, creepy black and white film of right before the war, and you can tell that it's coming, and like the kids are all fucked up. Like they start pulling these pranks that get more and more dangerous and more deadly, and it's like a lesson in how you can show the most quiet forms of violence and what they're about to turn into.
Was the movie made before the war, or the movie was set before the war?
Set.
Okay, but with the
it's contemporary.
It's okay.
Yeah. He's alive.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay.
Oh, he's so good at quiet violence. It's like terrifying.
Put me on. I'm so curious. I love the quiet violence and like the ability to reflect in that way and be kind of like, how do we depict this in a way that like kind of translates the terms of a moment?
This feels bigger than a moment, though. Like, I think there are times when the works feel potent and charged in the moment, and then especially like the more and more recent work feel like you're broaching larger swaths of history and larger different kind of reservoirs of feeling in a way.
Definitely like the older stuff was like that moment when, like a little bit. It was a little bit like, oh, when you're out here and this happens. And it was kind of trying to kind of do some broad sweeping stuff, but in a more kind of, and just pop, pop scratches the surface in a different way. It still might not nod to eras, like sweeping eras, but in a way that's very plucky.
Plucky.
And
like that.
I think this work, like the approach to this work is like more seeping and
these are great words.
Yeah. Like this is a different tone.
Yeah. Let's go to the most recent show. Like I want to go into the Carpenter Center show because there's a new level of vulnerability too.
Yeah. Vulnerable in a different way.
I think I just want to give you the floor for that. Like I think I don't know what got you there. I don't know what made you say, I want to show this, even though I don't know where it's at.
I think, honestly, the dialogue I was having with Dan, the curator, I think made me feel comfortable to just to try something, try a different approach. And I think, the impulse to be vulnerable in a school setting was that I was empathizing with how students engage with professionalism, and the pretense of Harvard is this exceptionalist projection, and it just seemed important to be vulnerable about what it takes to get to a goal, and how self-doubt is not an inherently embarrassing quality to have, and that perseverance is like looks a lot of different ways, I guess. So when I was thinking about students seeing the show, that's really what inspired me to be like, I'm going to do a massive studio visit, basically. And not try and say, hey, here's this institution, let me flex some exceptionalism. And in all honesty, I was tired, like that also is part of it.
It's done.
Yeah, like I think it wasn't purely motivated by that, but I think it was a moment where I was like, I'm tired and I'm not going to put myself into overdrive the way that I did for the hammer painting, the panoramic one. I was like, okay, let's go into overdrive because that's what this feels like it calls for.
Right.
But I was with this show, I was like, here's a moment for me to show a bunch of work that I don't quite feel confident about. I still tried to finish everything, and I still tried to create a level of resolution with all the paintings in that show to the best of my ability, but I didn't psychologically tap into the stamina required to set off the fireworks. I just let each painting be, a different work and not kind of try and like really do the entertainment that I strive for in my work. I did not. I was like, this is not an entertainer moment. This is a vulnerability moment. So yeah, unplugged behind the scenes.
It makes me think, you can say if this is an incorrect metaphor, but there's something about it that feels like when a stew is like half done, like it's done, but like, you can cook it down further. Like it can cook for another 3 hours. That it's offering something in that moment that like some things are still fresh, some things are still building, and you can see all of that happening. And it's it makes me think that this gets to be this really beautiful moment that we get to see what's cooking and then what will happen next.
Yeah. Like things are right. Like there's something between my last show in September and this show. There's something simmering here, but it doesn't need to be a moment that like is an era. Like I do treat a lot of shows as like an era of thought in an era of my studio, and I think this felt kind of like it didn't feel necessary to approach it that way. I also just really wanted to access the feeling of being like, I'm shy about this work, but I'm allowing people to look at it. And it got like the most press anything I've ever done has gotten. And I like, cool. Like, I don't feel confident about all this stuff. And it's like on full display. But like it felt like an interesting emotional challenge to like just be able to be okay showing things that I would never want the public to see. Some of it I'm like, I'm not like this is shameful, but there's just I'm not like embarrassed. I just think there's works that I'm like, this isn't indicative of like capacity, and just overriding that little goblin and being like, I got this, like it's fine, it's whatever, you got this. If I'm out here figuring out, you got this, like we're all figuring it out. There's no exceptionalism. We're just every day is different.
No notes.
That's what I gave. And Dan's fab. Dan, who's the curator I worked with, he made me feel incredibly comfortable. The approach I had for this show versus the show at the ICA, different dynamics.
Right. This is getting to that fireworks level. Like,
is it okay? But it's so funny because this painting, I struggle with this painting because it felt so just on the nose or something, and I was like wanting to, and I'm not saying this like this isn't good or whatever, but I just was like, I've been here before, I guess, and in terms of the themes, like I think that's where the self-doubt came from this painting. But a lot of people are like, oh, this painting is going in, and I was like, oh, okay, like not to, I just was like, I have a new entry point for this type of portraiture, and I don't quite know what it is.
But to me, there's still a shift. Like, I see what you're saying in terms of, like, you having been here before, but the way that you're treating it is very different. Like, when we think back to the first painting that we all saw together, like, there's definition, there's clarity, there's the way that you're even putting an image into an image. is like one where it's still graphic. You've abandoned certain graphic sensibilities towards something that feels much more ambiguous, blurry, actually and metaphorically. And so, yeah, there are times where landscape shows through the figure. You can see that cloudy blue sky, and it's like through the figure. But here, it might be landscape, it might be tonal, it might be internal, it might be external. Like, it's all like it's much more difficult to discern what
Like how the layers are happening and what, creating distinctions. Like,
yeah, you're pushing and pulling in a new way. In a way that's like more, in some ways more sensitive, and other ways just like you're just trying something else. Like it's a different register to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even though it might be familiar because it's like the portrait in this way and it's, centering this white woman in this way.
I think I was like, okay, the white girl spiraling. I was a little bit
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, what more could be said about that? Like, we know. It was a painting I needed to make. And the reference from this painting is Sallow. It's it's like a zoom in on the girl. If you guys have seen Sallow, it's like this movie about fascism, and these young white kids are experiencing degradations that are really extreme and so over the top to like what degradation is. It's like, what's the worst thing you could think of that happened?
I have so much to say about that. But
Yeah, that's like a whole other spiral. But I was like, oh yeah, I like this person is really being subjugated in this image, and I kind of, reducing it to something kind of like, in my own context can be read. A lot can be attached to it through how I'm talking about whiteness and in work. And like, I don't know, I do like to push through that ambiguity of like, we're still all human. This isn't trying to downgrade like violences that people at a human level experience, but here are the images we've been given to value. And what do we do when we like manipulate them and recontextualize them? Don't need to degrade them or make them feel like less potent, but what if we reframe them and like, what do they mean and what do they say about us culturally and what we prioritize?
Yeah. Prioritization, I think maybe is also kind of the register that you're hitting right now, which is like, you can move things forward and make it clearer and move things backward and blur it. And it allows for different and new distinctions to happen and for us to think about our own priorities and think about, oh, this is what I've been paying attention to. And it's not to say like the human picture is vast and always overwhelming, but we focus on what we focus on.
What are our associations? What does it trigger when we look at different things? We're going to all have different kind of entry points and familiarities. And those are just as much a part of the work, that's what art is the communal experience of it, not just the catharsis an artist has or the dialogue two artists have with each other, but the witnesses and the people who make meaning of it for themselves.
I'm going to open it up to questions.
On that note.
Yeah, go ahead.
First and foremost, thank you so much for giving us your words about your own work. This is a great opportunity to, I think, dive a little bit deeper into your process and your history. I think the first question I have is, a lot of your pieces are not framed. Is that an intentional decision that you make? And I feel like the evolution of the frame kind of gives an opportunity to add an even deeper layer of like three-dimensionality to your work, and even like, I don't know, a sculptural element that could potentially add more to the narrative that you're trying to portray. So that's my first question, is why no frames? And the second is...
can I answer that one? Because I'll
first.
Forget.
Yeah.
So I feel the frame thing is like, I do love paintings as like their own object. And I do love like them as like, this is a flat space. Like no matter when you look at a complicated image and you go deeper and you build a world and the depth is there. I do love that just existing just on a surface that you can walk around and see the side of. It's like, oh, and then there's like a brush stroke on white and it's like smudge and a fingerprint. the evidence of the evolution of an image is just like really interesting to me, as you can see in other works of mine where you see this looks more finished, this is abstract. Is that done? Is it not? Like, I do like the process being pretty transparent even when there's like a level of polish. And so that edge is something I like. But I'm into frames too. Like, sky's the limit for what something can be like and how it can impact people. It just hasn't organically come up. There's one painting in the Harvard show that has a white frame, but I found that canvas on the street, and it was already a painting, and I painted on top of it.
Okay.
And so it has a white frame. But the white frame, I was like, oh, this tears. Like, maybe I would make these like really simplistic white frames because they do a different type of thing.
Thank you. And yeah, lastly, the first time I saw your work was at the Whitney Biennial. I saw Look Who Got Wet. And
Period.
in that moment, my world kind of shattered. So if you could just talk about that painting a little bit more.
That's nice to hear. Thank you. That was a doozy of a time. And yeah, that painting, there was a lot of chaos at that time. Oh, Look Who Got Wet is a lyric from a Lil Ugly Mane song, who is a white rapper who pitches his voice down to escape his whiteness. And it just felt appropriate. I mean, I had already been painting the river. She's running through. She's trying to figure out. I was thinking about, I don't know. I'm like, do I go literal? Basically, oh, Look Who Got Wet give like, you're in this shit now. Like, there was a lot of controversy swirling around that show. But also I felt that show was in 2019. My first exhibition was 2017. So within 2 years less, I was like really kind of catapulted and responsible for a certain discourse in art that I wasn't ready for. I was like, dang, I'm responsible. So that was in there. But also I was like stealing and tugging at this Little Ugly Mane thing. And then the imagery itself, I think, is, the conflict of being responsible for something that is haphazard and oblivious, being in crisis as you move forward and as you're kind of propelled and driven to keep going. Like, I'm just going to keep doing this thing, but like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I also am like holding this thing that, presents itself as vulnerable, but is like shape-shifting and chaotic. And a critic wrote about this work and said that a slave runs to freedom, which was so painful and telling, because it just said, oh, this is where we're at. This person just confidently is like, this image of a Black figure running is like about enslavement. To a degree it is, but not in the ways, obviously, that she was framing it. It is about being beholden to things that don't serve you and, making choices about, what you need. But I also wanted it to be like a cinematic freeze frame where you're like, where is she going? What happened before this? What's happening after? We don't know.
Thank you.
There's a Stephanie Jemison video that also feels relevant to that, where it's an ongoing just panning shot of a Black man running.
Okay.
And you don't have any context, but what you start projecting onto that man starts telling you about yourself.
Exactly. The projection is like so much of work, especially in these contexts, in these institutional spaces. Like, that does have to be acknowledged, that these are in the context they're in, even if they're made for an audience that is not actually like represented in that space, or is not centralized in how the work is framed by institutions and journalists and curators.
Hello, my name is Anna, and I honestly love the way how you would openly speak about your feelings every other time you would describe a painting or a project you would work with. Like you mentioning, okay, I felt shy, but people loved it, so that's cool. And then the other image, and you go like, oh, I was so happy, that was a joy, and I was totally on it. But my question is that Do you have a painting, specific painting that you would feel like that was a challenge? That was something that you had to face at some point, because it's fantastic that you actually acknowledge your feelings and you're aware of, like, even you don't trust your intuition, but you still just kind of know what you're doing. So I'm really curious about that. Do you have something that maybe it's still hidden and nobody knows about that painting and you just,
Okay. I'm glad you appreciate the transparency. Like, I'm glad that's resonating. I think you mean emotionally? Like paintings that are hard in
the
like
emotion,
an existential, emotional way,
yeah,
and like reconciling what meaning is being produced from that work?
yeah, but not only meaning, even to put it on the canvas and be like, am I afraid of it? How,
Yeah.
what is your relationship with the painting? Not even like other people would say or react, but your own feedback on, oh, what the fuck did I did right now? Like, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I find raw rage, scary and hard to be transparent about in art and in life. And I think not couching my emotions in humor is something that's I'm working towards and working on. And I think humor is really useful. I think it serves a purpose. And I think it's like, I do feel like an entertainer at times with what I do. I want people to engage. I want there to be a range of emotions. Like, movies are what motivate me. Music is what motivates me. Time-based art is the thing that I am most impacted by. So to be working on a static practice, I really want to have that arc and that range, which is why I try and incorporate the violence and the humor and the levels of finish and all of these depths and the things that are coming out. But raw rage, flat rage, punctuated emotion that is not embedded in skill and playfulness is scary, but I'm curious about it.
Sounds like a real challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Somebody in the back over there.
Hi,
Hi.
Terry here. I was gonna say that your work, I guess my very first impression was that it's thought-provoking, but it provokes more than just thoughts. It provokes feelings and emotions. And throughout this talk, something that came up a few times, and even in this question right now, was intuition. And you mentioned earlier that there was a journey for you to maybe get more attuned to that intuition. And since the theme is based on distortion and contortion, I was wondering how that could play a role in your intuition or intuition in general as an artist, and how you're able to distinguish between the noise and the distortion that could potentially interfere with intuition itself. And again, like as an artist who's trying to create, I mean, there must be things around that inspire you all the time. So how do you filter and know exactly what is exactly yeah.
There's so many options, like the wide range of options in which to pursue and the roads and the threads to go down. Like, there's so many ways to freak your art and make something happen. And do I go this way? And, like production. When I think about production, music production, I'm like, you could do this, you could do this, it could be this, it could be fast, it could be slow. There's so many choices in music production. I'm like, how did they get it right? Like, how did they get it hit it in the right way? Like, I find that so inspiring. But the way that I paint, I think about those things, like the pitching up and the pitching down and the slowing down and the reverb of all of those kind of moments when you're, you know, I'm just gonna blur that, and then I'm gonna make that really crisp. I think how that happens, or what I want to say is, I think I had a really solid foundation of and broad array of influences at a pretty young age. So this isn't the only way that this happens, but I trust my taste. I think I have cool taste. I don't know. I like my taste. So I think that gives me faith in what I do. Like, I feel like the palette that I have has attracted people that I admire deeply to me, and that gives me the confidence to pursue my intuition and explore, and the stakes are low. In terms of following threads, like follow a thread, follow another thread. That didn't work. That's not quite what I thought. Like, it doesn't come out on the first try. Like that painting where I was like, that happened so fast, and I've been trying to get back there. Like, a lot of paintings are dense and have a lot of depth because I've tried 15 things and committed to them and had to commit to them not being there. And so it is a lot of trial and error, but it also is like, I'll know when it happens because the people in my life are a reflection of that. And the things I get to do and the things I've chosen to do fulfill me. So if I've been able to actualize that, then I can pick an image. I can pick a line. And maybe I don't have to pick. There's 5 lines representing one line, like a lot of paintings are just like, I'm not picking. I'm just going to do everything. And do it all, and then edit into something that makes the most sense.
Let's have one more, but I have a quick question based off of that. There's Rick Rubin was interviewing James Blake, and
lol.
James Blake was talking about that he's not good with melody.
Okay.
That he feels weak in melody.
Okay.
And that already was like a funny thing for me. I was like, really? And he was like, but I could take something that I thought worked pretty well and then just start looping it and then building it and transforming it. And it was almost like he took a weakness, what he saw as a weakness, and made it a strength. He was like, I'm never going to write like a pop melody like Miley Cyrus.
He's a collager. He seems like a collager. And I think some people are collagers, some people are inventors, and some people are collagers and inventors. Mm-hmm. And I think he's got a lot of influences doing a lot of work for him, and I think that he's maybe a curator, or I haven't listened to a ton of his music, so I don't want to flatten the thing, but like, I think how there are good curators. I'm like, you're really good at that. You're good at looking at stuff. You're a strong connoisseur. Some connoisseurs make things. And some people are riffing, and some people are channeling, some people are inventing, some people are contorting, some people are crashing all the way down so that they can pick one thing up and make it something. And some people are really good at research. Some people have 60 tabs open, and they look at every tab, and they absorb it, and they use it, and they take it. Some people have 60 tabs open and for years and then take one thing. Different approaches. I'd say James Blake seems like a person who has 60 tabs, and he looks at every single tab. And he uses and extracts all the stuff.
How many tabs do you have?
A million tabs. It's like, the tab culture is so intense, but there is an impulse to follow one thing, and then maybe a few of those things will be used. I'm not trying to create a comparison between me and James Blake, but like, I think there are different approaches that produce different types of work, and there's a different catharsis to be had in that output. Like, thinking about Rauschenberg versus Witten. I just saw the Witten show. Incredible. Like, so good. Such a relief. Thinking about that work, thinking about Rauschenberg, definitely not reading Rauschenberg because value, but it's different.
Mhm.
It's a different approach to assembling things from other things. And they have their different values.
I see.
Hey.
Thank you. I see. Okay. We'll do two. So you and you, and then that'll wrap it up.
Okay.
I hate saying you. I'm sorry. It's like so rude.
Hey, Janiva.
Hey.
I love hearing you speak. I really feel a lot of the things that you were saying with like disillusionment at like the immediate recuperation of identity politics into capitalism in the art world. That's just a side, but I had kind of like a technical question about, I liked what AJ said about palimpsests and sort of layers of drawing and mark making superimposed on top of each other. And that's something I see a lot of in your earlier work, decision making about how to draw borders and lines around these. Like you make decisions about where to end something with like a graphic area of color or something like that. And now the new work is like extremely exciting. It still has that drawing trace, but it's like expanded and maybe less based on referential images. So I'm kind of curious like where you're at with, you know, being beholden to reference images and also how you've changed your decision making around, you know, where to merge or diffuse or make clear elements of drawing.
I decided to take my time. I think that's the choice. I think early work was speed, and I have so many ideas, I don't know how to keep up with them. Just going to do it. It's done. Just going to do it. It's done. Shorthand. There was a lot of shorthand for ideas because I was like, this is my shot. I don't know if I'm going to do this again. I don't know what time I have. I don't know if I'll have the money to do this again. I don't know if I'll have the support. I don't know how long this will last. I'm just doing it now. And there was such a buildup. You'd asked me earlier, and I hadn't fully finished this question, where I had taken about 4.5 years after school where I wasn't painting for a number of varied reasons. But I had such a kind of truncated relationship to when I would start, and then it would be clunky. But there was just a lot of self-doubt, a lack of funds, a lack of space, and a landscape that didn't seem like I even cared about. So coming into it, again, I was renewed with a sense of enthusiasm that made me paint quickly. And, you know, when I started to paint again, that was around the time that the Kerry James Marshall show had happened and was touring the country, Mastery, and there was the Robert Colescott show. Like there was just these shows that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have time. I got to do this. We don't have time. And so I was moving really quickly. And I think the difference now is I'm moving more slowly. Like I'm sitting with things. I'm taking a step back. I'm taking naps. And then I go back in and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to paint over that. I don't need that, you know? And I'm going to go back in with a more measured hand. And I think there was a different type of editing that was happening at that time where I was like, paint black over it, paint another face, paint this, paint that. But there was a crudeness that came from the speed. And I think there was a lack of technical concern. Like I did care, of course, about communicating a competency around painting and a knowledgeability around the history of image making. But like precision wasn't the priority. I was like, there's a lot of ways to communicate competency, and precision isn't the one I'm focused on right now. Now, I think in lieu of prioritizing the conversations I was wanting to have in that work, because I'm communicating them in what I'm very firmly planted in as an institutional context, and things are morphing, but like I just am like, okay, if I want to keep making art, I have to find joy in it. And that's through learning, and that's through getting better. So I'm going to take my time, and not as fixated on like the reveal of violence and like the feeling of like, Black people, are you out there? I want to connect to you. This happens. Like, I'm not crazy. That's weird, right? Like, that really formed my personality at a time where I was just like, are you guys there? Like, is this happening? And I'm not in that place. I'm like, I have my fucking people around me. I feel cute. I feel fab. I'm sipping wine, and this is so fun. And now I'm just kind of like, and still feeling crisis, but like, finding catharsis in like learning about forms, and then like getting to sprinkle ideas on top of that form and that understanding of like what makes forms like deep and resonant.
All right, last question.
Hey.
Hello? Oh. Sorry. Like I somehow found myself living in Somerville, Massachusetts, and I saw a flyer for your paintings at the Carpenter Center, and I was like, in my way, like, Massachusetts is my Hawaii, and I was like, oh, this will be a chance to like meet people. And I went on Friday, and it was on a Thursday. The opening was on a Thursday.
Okay.
But I had so much time to sit with your work, and I didn't realize I had met you before, but I was like, I had served you at a restaurant once, and I was like, that's crazy.
This relationship between being working in the service industry and meeting people and then being like that.
It's New York, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't tripping on it, but like.
No, but I just am like, I know, like, yeah, I get it.
So one thing that I really think about when I see your paintings is like, I'm someone who loves to be like under the covers and turn a flashlight on. I feel like your paintings are inside. When we're outside, it's also still inside. And I'm just curious about like the architecture of your dreams and memories and like how you reflect on them.
For that. The last question gave conclusive. Wow. Wow. I will say that when I first left Hawaii, my dreams were really vivid, and the recall I had with my internal inventiveness was spilling over. And being in New York for a long time and turning this catharsis into a profession, like, has created different, like created certain gaps, like in a freedom of like my subconscious making contact with my conscious. As my conscious feels cloudier and concerned with things I don't care about, more concerned with things I don't care about, in the emotional sense, and the fulfillment sense. So I had this really vivid dream the other day, a very art world dream where I was like, it was very like conspiratorial dream about how I was like being attacked and all these things. But it inspired me because I hadn't made contact with like a vivid dream in a while. And the vivid dreams happen when I go back to Hawaii or when I'm not in the city. But when I'm here, it is a little to get to free associating, freedom, saying yes to impulse, like all of those things. And yeah, that's what I have on that. Yeah. Are you from Massachusetts?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your Hawaii. You grew up and you're like, I'm out here. What the fuck's going on? Yeah.
I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, honestly. Thank y'all. I really appreciate you guys coming. Aja and I have been talking about doing this for a while, and I'm glad that it could come together. This felt very cozy. I was nervous, and this felt very normal. and really nice. So thank you.
It's really my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you all for keeping the energy. And yeah, we do this every month. So this is the energy we like to keep. Candida Alvarez is going to be our next talk in June. And our July talk is going to be Upstate with Tamika Wood. We have some exciting conversations in the fall, one of which will be Alex DeCorte. So stay tuned, come through, stay on the mailing list. If you're an artist that is interested in our services, hit us up just for a free call. You can see what you want, what this is about, what education's about, where we can meet you. Yeah, just again, let's give it up for Janiva. My name is Ajay Kurian. NewCrits is a global platform for virtual studio visits and mentorship. This is a company that I started about 3 years ago, wanting to democratize art education outside of MFA programs and to have artists that are working and have careers and are also amazing educators so that you, all of you and many others around the world can have access to the mentorship that they can provide. So we have studio mentorship, professional mentorship, contract coaching, and portfolio reviews. And then we are also now offering classes. So we just launched our first class like a month ago called New Identities for Dangerous Times. Obviously, with everything that's happening in the world right now and everything that's happening in education, these are not the classes that you're going to see anywhere. So it's something that we pride ourselves in, and the classes that we're going to be offering in the coming fall, there's going to be 4 classes. We're going to offer New Identities for Dangerous Times again, 3 new classes, one with Steve Shaheen, another with Shayna Hohen, and another with Shayla Miller. So stay tuned. There's some good things coming.